Okay, we are live. All right, I heard myself, so we're good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 7 of my 31-day live. My name is Miss Patricia, and we have a special guest today. This is Shiva. Shiva is also a coach, but I'm going to let him introduce himself because this whole episode is really going to be about him and how he fits with our topic this week. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Patricia. I am a leadership and performance specialist, and I empower professional women to stand up and out as leaders, to allow the leader she knows she can be to come out and shine. Again, as I stated, this is day 7. And if you are joining us on Facebook, we are using a software that you actually need to give permissions to if you want to send comments in. So if you're on Facebook, go ahead and look in the description of this live. Click on see more, scroll all the way down to the last line, click on that link, and you will give you will give the app permissions for us to see your comments. So thank you for joining us. This week we're focusing on self-development / personal development. And the topic of the day is finding your purpose through personal development. Now, when I thought of this topic, I thought, oh my goodness, this would be perfect for Shiva. So when we talked, I told him, this is made for you. This is made for you to come share your beautiful journey with us. So let me introduce Shiva to you. Go ahead, Shiva, tell us about you.
Well, greetings and namaste, everyone. Thanks, Patricia, for the big lead up. Hopefully, we can keep this party going and get some people dancing with us in this time together. Thanks so much for having me on here. I have to first say that before I even introduce myself, that Patricia and my meeting is just one of those beautiful happenstances of the universe. Serendipity at its best. Living in the same city, but we happen to be doing the same course in a completely different country that it was hosted in, and that's how we cross paths. And then we're like, oh, Minneapolis, woo! And that's how we met. But my name is Shiva S Mittal, and I'm an artist at heart and an engineer by training. So there's always sort of the battle between those two that I enjoy on a daily basis, pretty much. But my beloved wife and my kids set me straight, and usually the heart wins, I think, most days. But otherwise, I have sort of a checkered background in the sense that my parents were Bollywood journalists, so they wrote about the movies, and so I had a big hangover of Bollywood growing up in India. And in India, basically, when I was growing up, you were either a doctor or an engineer, or you were good for nothing. If you couldn't do either of those things. Yeah. So I opted for the engineering path, and that's how I spent probably the first almost 10 years of my career doing software engineering mostly. First in India, and then in the Bay Area, and then other parts of the US before coming to Minneapolis. And then I moved, continued down more of that corporate private sector career track, moving from engineering into project management, into quality control, into supply chain and sourcing. And that's where the wheels turned for me, and I kind of returned to a point of, you could say, midlife crisis, or having no clue what to do with myself. Ms. Patricia, I know, has shared bits and pieces of her story, unless she shared it in a video that I've yet to catch up on. I have a couple. But there's a lot of similarities there. You come to a point, and I think anyone's life story, there's a point, there's a turning point, right? And then there's maybe another one and another one, but you can clearly, note those, or they just clearly stand out to you. So for me, this was a turning point for me where I sort of had to take a breather from this career of almost 20 years and say, is this what I want to be doing going forward? And is this truly honoring who I am? Is this what the world truly needs? Is this the best use of my talents? And all of those answers were, well, Shiva, you're not going back to what you were doing, even though it was a nice pay package. It was a comfortable life. It was a lot of security. But eventually, long story short, I ended up re-careering into the broader area of wellness. And I started out with more of a traditional coaching perspective where, I set up a very friendly neighborhood sort of coaching outfit after doing some basic training and career counseling and things like that. But as I even did that on the scale that I did, I found that in both my personal journey and the journey of, the clients I was trying to help, wellness was like a fundamental, key that had to be turned before the treasures of one's true potential could be unlocked. So that, took me into another phase of, further study, and at the end of which I became a certified yoga teacher. I'd been doing yoga pretty much all my life in different forms, but after doing the training, I felt I was more equipped to, give that, message and, help people in a different way.
And for anyone who does not know, yoga is yoga, but Shiva likes to say it the way it was meant to be said. So when you hear yoga, just know that he means yoga. Go ahead, Shiva.
Thanks so much, Patricia.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a thing I have. Yoga is a Sanskrit word, and there's actually a transliteration scheme that most people do not follow, because of which, mispronunciation occurs over time. It's like if I were to say tortilla,
Mhm.
and, a Mexican or, Spanish speaking person would be like, what?
Yeah.
It's tortilla, if you say it really sort of with a lot of oomph, and that really brings out almost the flavor of the darn thing in my mouth. Man, I could have one right now. But it's sort of the essence of the word, and Sanskrit is a language which is very intentional. Like yoga is very intentional. Nothing in yoga is without purpose. It's not loosey-goosey, which is why it appeals to the engineer in me, because it's very focused, very purposeful. But at the same time, it's very universal. It's very accessible. You could do chair yoga if you're not trying to get into the headstand club, so to speak. Or you could simply do shavasana, which is, corpse pose, lying down and just taking a breather, taking a pause. So it's called yoga, but it's much more universal and accessible than that. I think most people are doing yoga without even knowing it, and yoga just sort of puts it into an organized system of, hey, if you want to go this way, this is what you can do, because it's been validated over thousands of years by thousands and millions and billions of people over time. But kind of back to my story. Doing the yoga certification gave me the tools to go into what I would call phase 2 of my change the world, initiative. And that is, wellness for all. It's as simple as that. That's my mission. It's wellness for all. And to do that, obviously, I have to walk the talk, right? I have to embrace my own feelings, my shortcomings, my own disappointments every day, but also the getting back up, right? How do I get back up? What are the ways I can get back up? Who do I lean on for the days when I don't have the strength to really get up on my own? So that's where my current practice is focused on. It's really wellness. And wellness, I believe, starts on the inside. And as our cup fills up, the best way to put it on the outside is to let that cup overflow, and then things just happen automatically. So yeah, maybe that's a longer introduction than you wanted, but
No, it's
it's
beautiful.
I figured a little background might be helpful to figuring out who's this Shiva guy anyway. What's his
Well, no, that was beautiful, and you kind of touched on the main topic of the day, which is finding your purpose through your personal development. You said you started with engineering, then you kind of went to different paths until you found the path that you are now on, the path where you became a yoga instructor or a certified yoga, and you're more focused on the overall wellness of a person, not just a particular thing. Can you give us some examples of how using yoga in your practice helps people find their purpose?
So I'll be
It helps
honest,
them.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'll be honest that yoga did not just miraculously switch on the light bulbs for me, right? In fact, I would say when I was at a point in my career where I was doing well on all the external aspects, but internally I was stifled. I was feeling not creative. I was feeling like I was doing the same thing day in and day out, kind of traveling without movement. And just little signs of physical, lack of wellness, like going up the stairs and feeling winded. And, I've always been, fairly active person. And for me, that was just like a really strange thing to be going up the stairs and kind of falling short of breath. So it was these little signs that built up over time. But did I do something about them actively? Did I turn to my yoga practice? No. In fact, I went further away from it. I did more work. I was trying to impress my boss maybe at the time. I was working long nights. I went the other way. So I was a poster child for what not to do. But the point of this is that, things take time and things sometimes happen when they do.
Yes.
But at the same time, one can create conditions for things to happen or not, right? So when I found myself taking a pause and taking a step back and saying, is this still serving me? Is this still, even a remote semblance of what my inner joy was, my inner flame was? I was like, no, it's not. And I didn't have an answer as to what was. I just knew this was not it. And that was not a comfortable place to be in. Also, there's external pressures, there's social programming, oh, you've got such a great job, you've got a great family, what's wrong with you? Just like one of my close family members said, why don't you just go into teaching if you want to teach people, but do it. And I was like, but I don't know what I'm going to teach, because I knew it wasn't going to be engineering. It was going to be something fairly removed from what I was doing before. That was clear, but what it wasn't. So when I did start these practices of yoga again on a very small level, when I first, like anyone else, I've done New Year's resolutions and I've not met them, After the first week of doing it, then I miss a day, and then soon it becomes 2 days, 3 days in a row, and then it's a distant memory, right?
Yes.
But what I did this time was I was like, okay, yoga's an elephant. It's a whale. It's even bigger than that, right? It's thousands and thousands of years of all kinds of wonderful philosophies and knowledge and practices and tools and techniques and breathing and whatnot. Where do I start? So I just started with like a 5-minute routine, just 5 minutes. Start small, like they say, how do you eat an elephant or a whale? Bit by bit, right? So I just started with the smallest bit that I could make, muster up courage for, make time for. And then one thing led to another. The basic of yoga is that when I took this pause, I gave myself the space to move into something different.
Okay.
It created that space, and that's huge. I think what I was trying to do before that was trying to squeeze one more thing in. One more thing in. But I had not created the space for it. So that was the light bulb that went off for me. And Ayurveda says this too, which is, another sister science also called Ayurveda. Again, the same A deal. You don't elongate the A in certain words. In certain words you do, but in Ayurveda and yoga you don't. So Ayurveda says the same thing, pretty much. They consider the first element to be space. And if there's no space, no other element can follow. If there's no space, air cannot move. A fire cannot burn. Water cannot flow. Earth cannot be present.
That's so
So none
true.
of the successive elements can be present without space. And so yoga, first off, just helped me create that space.
So when you got into yoga and you were doing, like, taking the pause, did you take the pause while you were still working or after?
Well, this wasn't the first pause I took, I've got to be honest.
Okay.
Like I said, one gets on the wagon, coasts along for a while, and then suddenly hit a ditch, go down. You kind of forget the lessons of the past. So I'm no stranger to that phenomenon. So the first time I took the pause, it was when I was working. And things weren't as dire in the sense that at that time I could basically find another job within the same organization that, really filled my cup at that point in time. But the second time, the more recent one, was when I was really struggling to make my mark in an organization that had been through a lot of changes, including my own boss being laid off like a year before all these things started. And lo and behold, a year later, it was my turn. My head was on the chopping block. And actually, that was the best thing that happened to me. Although I went from, a 0, 0, 0, 0, lots of zeros in my income to zero. Thanks again to family support and people, a small clique of people who believed in me. We made it through. But like I said, it wasn't easy the second time around because I didn't have this cushion, so to speak, and yet I had the pressure. So I had to be really patient with myself. I had to really be more creative in the sense that now that money wasn't coming in, and I was the single earner in the family at that point, we were a family of 5, and there was no backup plan, really. We did have some rainy day savings, but those don't last forever. So we had to be creative about how to reduce our already pretty modest footprint even further, which was also creating more space, because when we reduced our so-called needs, which were really wants, it just created space for other things to manifest in our lives that we wouldn't have experienced if this had not happened.
Excuse me.
Does that give you a sense of
the
journey?
Nice. It makes me think about my story too. Actually, even Kara, you and Kara might do really well together. She is also a coach, and she is into wellness, mental wellness, but wellness this makes me think about my own journey when I came to a point where I realized that I had to quit my job, and even though I didn't know what tomorrow would bring or where I needed to go, I knew that I needed to stop, and I knew that I needed to. Actually, at the time, I didn't know I needed to take a break, and I love that idea that you talked about. You need to make space for things to come into your life without you trying to cram or fit it. Because back in 2018, I had tried to start a company, but at the time, I was working full-time. I was going to school full-time and being married, not really having time for my relationship with my husband, really. It was not the right time. But after quitting my job and taking this beautiful space, like that you were saying, for several months, when it came time for me to find my purpose, where I needed to go with my life, it literally fell into my lap, and I've been running with it since. And so I can relate to that, to the idea that we need to give space. We need to create space, take that pause for life, even air to come into our lives and fill the holes that we have. I think that's so beautiful. Yeah, that's very beautiful.
You live and learn. I think I briefly noticed a comment from Kara saying, something good comes out of every opportunity.
Yeah.
Something good comes out of every situation. Thanks, Kara.
Mhm.
But that's so true. But it's hard to see that when you're, like you said, when you don't have the space to see that, when you haven't created the conditions to see beyond what is right in front of you. Either it's too close up front and you can't see past it, or you're not just this much risen above the situation to see what's really going on here. What's the pattern? What's the theme? I know a door closed, but how many other windows or doors might have opened because I'm not turning around? I'm not doing this. And again, this is where yoga is like metaphorically and physically very helpful. Like there's some poses where you're inverted, right? You're like just a down dog. If you're aware of the down dog, you're basically sort of in this inverted V shape. And that gives you a whole new perspective. If you do some of those just yoga postures, and postures is like, one of the very initial rungs of yoga. It takes you to much higher levels over time if you practice it. But just those postures give you a different perspective. Your breath moves differently in the body, and we are as much energy bodies as we are bodies of matter, right? And when that energy flows differently, we start thinking differently, we start feeling differently, we experience differently. And that's the whole piece that starts to come together over time. My yoga practice is not the same every day. I've learned that in some things it's good to be a creature of habit, but in other things it's good to be a creature of awareness, of being aware of what my body needs today in this moment. Does it need a more energizing practice so I can get going? Or am I kind of feeling a little, the weight of the world on my shoulders for whatever reason, and I just need to do like a restorative practice? And some days I skip yoga altogether. Well, it's hard to skip yoga altogether, but like a focused practice. And I just see what comes. I see what comes after. Do I feel guilty about it? Do I feel less nourished? And, 9 times out of 10, I needed to do something. I just wasn't aware of what it was I needed to do. But over time, as I become more aware of my physical body, my intellectual body, my emotional body, my spiritual body, and how my interactions affect the world around me, it starts to, more thoughts start to come, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I could try that. And then I become more of an experimenter. And this goes back to the engineering stuff, right? Don't be shy of experimenting. I've seen some of your videos, Patricia, and I think that's why we sort of hear each other so well, is because you are perfectionist too, right?
Yes.
In so many ways. You want to present your best self. You want the best for your clients. You don't want anything less than your best potential.
Yes.
But at the same time, that can also be a challenge, right? When I think of my perfectionist self, yeah, it gives me a great, I can aim for the stars or aim for the moon and land in the stars. It's great in that sense. But on the other days, it stops me from putting myself out there.
Yes.
It stops me from that creative urge, and somehow creativity and perfectionism make an odd couple. What comes on the spur of the moment is perfect in of itself. And once I reframed myself to that perspective, I was much more forgiving of what my perfect concept of it was. You know, it was just being in the moment, being present. And again, yoga does this too. Or anything that gives you joy. I mean, yoga is just a method of connecting with your deeper self. It's just a method of shutting out the noise. You know, it's just a matter, you know, another way of decluttering the mind. And of course, there's the physical side effects of yoga, which is, you know, you feel healthier, you know, you've got more prana or life force going in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all this integrated soup, right? It's like you can find your soup and call it yoga. You know, throw in broccoli if you like broccoli, throw in the carrots, you know, don't like the carrots, throw in the chicken, whatever. I don't care. But you got to find the soup that works for you. And that's a lifelong thing because we're changing every day. You know, I'm changing every day. The soup that worked for me yesterday may not work for me today. Yet there are certain principles that are constant over time. And as I realize those about myself, I can tell, yes, you know, I think that ingredient is missing from the soup. Maybe I need to add more of that, or maybe I need to replace that with something because this is not one of those days.
I really like that. I really like that idea of, well, like you said, sometimes you need to figure out if you need to give yourself more energized yoga experiences or a low dose or no yoga at all. And I like the idea of it being like a soup, almost, well, a soup, today you might have these ingredients, tomorrow you have another, you know, you create whatever soup of the day you want. And I like that idea. And I understand that too, because one of the reasons why I'm even doing this challenge is the fact that I don't have problem creating content. Like, one thing I'm very grateful for is my ability to just create stuff. My problem is, as a perfectionist, I didn't sit and think, how could I make this better before I give it to the world? You know, and doing the live is forcing me to see that, hey, whatever, like the sunlight that was just dancing up here, should I stop and re-record everything because the sun decided to join the party? I don't have a choice when I'm live. And doing live has taught me, I think, what you're saying right now, that, hey, maybe today I'm throwing every ingredient into the soup of my creation. But sometimes I'll just throw in carrots or onions, and that is also okay because that is also my creation. It's been an interesting experience doing these lives. It's been interesting to see, like, to get to know myself better in terms of I've been limiting myself thinking that, you know, I have to use these exact same ingredients every day and everything I create before I can present it to my family, before I can give it to the world. And really, no, because every day it's okay to be different. It's okay to experience new things, need new things myself, and also reach out to someone else in a different way. Well, see, Kara also agrees that your soup analogy is awesome. I really like that. I've never heard that before. So thank you for sharing that with me. There's something you said that I wrote down. Actually, there are many things you said that are like explosions in my mind. One of the ones I really, really liked is that wellness was like a fundamental key. When you were trying to figure your path, you realized that wellness was needed for you to find happiness in the path that you chose. And actually, before deciding that I wanted to become a coach to professional women who wanted to become leaders, I had thought about wellness and how I can use my ever-going wellness journey to empower people. But then I realized that it was just because I was on the journey myself, not because I felt called to it or not because it was the message that I needed to put out in the world, you know? So, um, how did it call you? How did you know that it was a fundamental key? Because understanding that calling really helps when it comes to trying to find your purpose and starting your personal development.
That's a great question, Patricia. And I mean, I have to say that even before I sort of, refocused in on the wellness bit here, I was always looking at the holistic intertwining of different areas of life, you can say. So in my previous sort of coaching practice, and it's still a part of the framework, I had basically four life areas. One was
Mhm.
your career, your relationships, your money, and your health. So for me, it was really obvious. Like when I was, down in the dumps at one point, I went for coaching myself. So I've been on the other end of the coaching table several times, whether formally, or informally, through friends and family, and books and videos. I consider everything my coach. Life is a coach.
Mhm.
As long as you're engaging with life in some way, shape, or form, you're being coached. It just depends how you digest and reflect on those lessons. So one of the coaches I worked with, God bless her, I'm not going to say her name here because I'm not sure if she wants the publicity, but I'll say her
Mhm.
first name anyway, Christina. Christina asked me that, Shiva, think about a peak experience in your life. And this also resonates a lot with Ayurveda, which has a concept of prakriti, which is one's core nature, and the concept of vikriti, which is how one's nature gets imbalanced over time, due to circumstances, due to social conditioning, due to one's own mistakes, things of that nature. But when Christina asked this question, for me, as I look back on it now, it said, where did you find your core nature shining? Where was it the most brilliant? And that was a heavy question, right?
Yeah.
Because I needed to know what is my core nature. Um, and sometimes one is so far along the road of doing other stuff that one's forgotten where you started out from.
Mhm.
So in my case, I went back to like my college years when I was growing up in a, in a city, but not a crazy, megapolis or something. It was a fairly self-contained city, and you could. It was kind of like Minneapolis almost in some respects. Also, my hometown, Chandigarh. A lot of trees, lots of greenery. I like biking. Going on my bicycle from place to place, even when I was, you know, uh, past my teens. But I came back to that phase of my life as my peak experience, and I was like, okay, let's look at this a little more closely. What does it mean to be in a peak experience? It's not merely getting a medal of honor or getting recognized or you know um, beating a personal record of some sort.
Mhm.
It was a lot of things that were working like clockwork in a lot of ways. So I had access to great family and friends. I was studying in a great institution. I was active in like our music club in school. I was also writing for a newspaper. um, I think the only thing missing was I didn't have a steady girlfriend, but with so much else going on, I probably didn't notice. Um, but but that question helped me figure out, okay, what are the elements that really fuel my fire, that make me feel creative, make me feel engaged with life, that the more I put into it, the more I get out of it, and then you have this nice little spiral going the right way up rather than the other way down. Um, so I think that's where I realized that there's this intertwining of your career, your health, your relationships, and your money. And you can't go beyond a certain threshold on either one of these unless the other ones are also pulled up.
Oh.
And that's another Ayurvedic principle of balance. You know, So balance is not being on the middle road on everything. It's knowing what needs attention because it's the weakest link in the chain. And so when I look back at my wellness aha moments, I call it wellness, but it's really broad in the sense that depending on, like, if a client comes in, there's a certain sort of framework that they need to go in through. There's a pretty exhaustive evaluation they have to do, which includes a lot of self-reflection on their part. I'm more like the one asking questions and maybe administering some tests if they're up to it, that give me an insight into what's their life been like. What was that peak part of their life? And how and why have they strayed away from it? And is that peak still valid for them? Or was it not a true identification of their inner nature? And where can they go from here, given what the tools and the situations and the people that are in their midst? So it's kind of complicated, but if you start unraveling the layers, sort of like I said, 5 minutes a day, over time you start to eat that elephant, right? You start to make that progress and you look back. You also want to keep track of this. So like, I'm a big person on journaling. I know it doesn't work for everyone, but there's a lot of ways you can journal. You can do videos. You don't always have to write it. You can just speak to a friend, and that can be like another way of journaling. So it's really just articulating your thoughts. And that also helps you figure out, okay, I was here yesterday, but I'm here today, which is a different place. We're going to be in a different place on any given day by definition, because if nothing else, the cells in our body are not the same they were yesterday. So even if you're not conscious of it, we have changed. We're not the same person we were yesterday, right? But if you're paying more attention, we start to raise our awareness around what is that? What is that change? Where is it leading into? Again, what doors and windows might be opening? And which ones are right for me at this point in time? And then at a certain point, you sort of say, okay, this makes sense. And it's just like an inner voice. It doesn't even have like a statistical quality to it, that if you do it for 90 days, you get this, or, you form a habit in 21 days or 40 days, whatever. It's more like an internal calling that comes to the surface, because you've been stirring the pot a little bit. You've been, needling it, poking it. And eventually it says, okay, I'm going to give you another bit of the answer. And then that just becomes a continuous process of both self-knowing and self-discovery. And it's not just it's not just, like I said, through yourself. Like I said, talking to friends, talking to people that both know you very well and don't know you from Adam can be huge. That's the spectrum, right? Someone who doesn't have any judgment or bias about you to begin with, when you meet them, they might just tell you something that says, they might say, you're really funny. And you're like, I didn't know that about myself. I didn't think I could make people laugh, right? Or like you've experienced, Patricia. Janitors and anyone from janitors to like VPs have come to you saying, kind of pouring their heart out to you. There's that invisible connection there, right? Because somehow energetically, you didn't have a sign up saying, Patricia, coach, come talk to me, right? You were just doing your job, but they could feel the energy, and they had a story of their own to tell, and they wanted to discover themselves, maybe through you. They wanted to maybe tap into that inner problem solver through you, right? At just that one point in time, and maybe they disappeared and never came back after that. But isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, and I like how you tied that back to me, because I didn't think about that. But yes, even before I officially decided to accept the title, I don't even call myself a coach. Kara actually helped me through this. Like, I'm not a coach. I'm not a coach. What am I? I'm not a coach. I'm not a coach. But my entire life has been what you just said, where random people will come to me and tell me stuff I don't really want to know, but being polite, I would listen to till it got to a point where I couldn't wait till the next random person would come to me and strike up a friendship with me. Kara told me when she first met me that she actually felt that way about me. She actually is in Minneapolis also. Well, she's close to Minneapolis. She's in Minneapolis area. We used to work together. And the first day I came to the job where she had already started working before I got there, she told me later that she thought that I was very open. Like there's something about me that was welcoming. And I didn't think about that being a gift at all. At all. But it has blessed me to have beautiful experiences with random people who might have already forgotten me, but they've left their mark on me, letting me know that I am needed, even if it was just to listen to them for that one day.
Mhm.
And so, even before I found my purpose, it has been calling me all my life, and it's just recently that I accepted the call. So, I love that. Well, thank you very much for sharing this with us. So, first, I want you to let us know how, if anyone who's watched us live or on the replay would like to follow you on anywhere, oh, I don't know, YouTube or your Facebook page, how do we reach you?
Well, I can definitely, post my deets in the comments or something. But lately, just because of the how 2020 has been, I've had to transition sort of my friendly neighborhood, um, very not online practice into more of an online presence. In fact, I just had, before this, a basic sort of page on Facebook that said, okay, and I, called the outfit Third Eye Life Design. If you search for Third Eye Life Design on Facebook, you'll probably find me. And of course, feel free to friend me on Facebook as well. Hopefully Shiva Mittal turns that up, but like I said, I'll leave my details. But as part of the online transition, just like you are doing, Patricia, I'm sort of putting myself out there, sort of raw and uncensored. I've done that for pretty much most of last month, putting out at least one video every day. Even though I don't really know all of the production stuff, and I mean, you're doing a great job. I can probably learn from you, with
Oh, thanks.
I'm not at the point yet where I feel comfortable inviting guest speakers, although I'm so itching to do that. But I think I need to get a little more technically savvy before I jump that
Well, hey,
gun.
if you need any help, I would love to help you. I love playing with the little techie stuff. So
Yeah, I'll probably take you up on that. But yeah, otherwise YouTube is a good place to catch me if you just want to see me speak like I am right now, very chatty, very conversational, very off the cuffs. Sometimes the kids pop in. My daughter came in before, but I'm on a high up desk today, so she couldn't peek her 4-year-old head into this. But we've got some of that going on my YouTube channel. So it's nice, light fun, and hopefully my intention is to just put a little bit more wellness out into the world. We've got plenty of negativity and crazy news reports and fragmentation of not just the country politically, racially, but the world as a whole. So I figure this is a time when I can put my perfectionist hat aside and just put out some good vibes. That's really what I'm trying to do here.
So I actually have two things to ask you before we leave, if that's okay. One would be, could you share with us one yoga thing that we could do at our desks, or maybe someone's watching us while they're sitting on their couch. If you're driving, please don't follow us. But one thing that we can do right now, wherever we are watching this, to incorporate yoga or wellness into our lives.
Yeah, definitely don't do this while driving. But really, if you can, anytime today, when you have that opportunity, might be right before you're falling asleep even. Just take an opportunity to sit with yourself. Just sit with yourself. What I mean by that is you could go, sit on your favorite chair, maybe turn the lights off,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of just sit with yourself for a minute or so. Don't put a timer to it, but just breathe and enjoy your own company.
Mm-hmm.
Just enjoy your own company and see how that feels. There's much more. There's lots of specific yoga practices, and what this might lead up into is more breath work. But I think the beginning is just recognizing yourself, being in a place of relative stillness, of shutting off the sensory overload that's always around us. The phone, the TV, the kids, or the husband, or the significant other, or the neighbors. The cars in the street. But if you can find that moment of silence. Just find that moment of silence and connect with yourself. Enjoy your company.
I like that because once again, your answer was create the space. Take a pause, create the space, get to know yourself. I like that as your message. Really, I love it. So the last question is, as part of this live, I've been playing this game where at the end I would share 3 questions. Well, I would get 3 questions from this book. Of course, I'm only going to ask you one. If you are okay with it, 3 or 1 random question from this book about you. Would you be interested in playing with us?
Go for it. Okay. I love shooting myself in the foot anyway, so.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Sometimes the things that come out of my mouth after I've recorded, I think, okay, was that a little too much to share? But,
my answer to that is that crazy guy is me, and that cool guy is me, and everything in between. It's all me. I just gotta love and accept all of that,
Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, so funny enough, the page I read, you pretty much answered this whole time. That was funny. So I just opened a different page. Well, here's a silly one. Do you prefer digital or rotary analog clocks, and why?
Wow.
It's very silly.
It's silly, and it's actually a tough one for me, because we got both in our house.
Oh.
But I have to say, I tend to have purpose on which clock I prefer. So for example, if I have an appointment, I will look at the digital clock because that tells me right away what the numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm more looking at is it, more looking at the hour sort of thing, is it past 8 or, is it, before 5? Then I look at the analog clock. So being the person that I am, it's hard to choose. I want to have my cake and I want to eat it too. I want the digital and the analog, if that makes sense.
I love that. Oh, look, Kara just said she loves that too. For me, I gotta say that I have this. I don't want to say I have super hearing, but I can hear the clicking of the mechanism of analog watches. Drives me crazy. In fact, this is going to sound outrageous, but I can hear it in a different room. So yes. Oh my gosh. Just the little watch, right? I can hear it in a different room. It drives me nuts. So I would prefer digital just because my overly hypered awareness of things make noises that much louder for me, like noises that repeat. So that's why. Thank you for playing the game with me. I really really loved your answer. I was not expecting that at all.
No,
So
it's a
Shiva,
pleasure, and thanks for sharing yours. You actually brought up a good point. I just realized that in our bedroom, we don't have a clock. So we purposely keep our devices and stuff out of the bedroom when we're sleeping. And there's no analog clock in the bedroom. And the analog clock that I was referring to is more in our kind of family room space. But I have this other room where I sort of sleep in when, I have to either work late or I don't want to disturb the kids or the wife. And, or I have to sleep early because I have to get up at a different earlier hour. And in there, for the longest time, I didn't have a clock. But now, like that you mentioned it, I have a digital clock there, which doesn't do the. And I think I might be the same like you are, or now that you've told me, I might be more attuned to the tick tick. And that's certainly not something I want to hear when I'm trying to get some Z's or focus on something.
Yeah, it's on my desk. I recently got a timer because I was trying to do this being more time-minded thing where I time myself like every 45 minutes. Like I need to focus 45 minutes on something and then stop. But the stupid timer was like click, 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 click. And I was like, oh, I can't even work because all I can hear is click, click, click. So that was a waste of money. But anyway, thank you so much for spending time with us today, being the first ever co-host of Ms. Patricia. You have hit a milestone with us, and I appreciate you. And I look forward to having you another day for something else. Thank you so much for being part of my community, being part of the coaches or mentors in my life that I can turn to, both you and Kara. I'm very grateful that you have taken an hour of your time to be with us today. And as soon as you share your information that you'd like hosted, I will add it both to the YouTube link and also the two different places that I have them posted right now on Facebook, so that anyone who would like to get to know you more, because you are a beautiful person and people should reach out to you, who will have the opportunity to get to know you. Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kara, and the other two people who have not said anything that I can see are online with us. Thank you for being part of this opportunity. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and be safe. Thanks, Shiva.
Thanks so much, Patricia. It's an honor and a pleasure. I look forward to, many more fun times together. And, let's continue to put out that positive energy into the world.
Thanks. Yes, I agree. Thank you.